things have been tense slightly between Egypt and Saudi Arabia. But things have been more tense between Egypt and the United States. And before you jump to conclusions and tell me, yeah, we know, but we haven't done anything, they only do what they want. Don't forget that the Egyptian president did not agree to meet Donald Trump. He refused an invitation from Donald Trump when the plan of the ethnic cleansing was still pushed very hard by the administration, and instead the Jordanian king went to the United States and then went back. There were no direct communications between the presidents. Of course, there are still communications between lower grades, but the tensions between Egypt and the United States escalated after that, especially seeing as Egypt already refused to take action with the genocide coalition inside of the Red Sea after the United States established this genocide coalition to support Israel, of course, later on to only have a deal with them. But they wanted to take advantage. This is the typical approach of Donald Trump. He will try and make the best out of a certain situation or get as much as he wants, only for him to do a U-turn eventually and have a deal with whoever he wants whenever it suits him. So why is the Egyptian president in Saudi Arabia? Well, Saudi Arabia still has very good communication at the top level with the United States, and there have been messages there that all of the attempts coming from Israel to forcibly expel the Palestinians are outright refused, and that will never happen with Egypt, and Egypt will get into a confrontation if that campaign starts to get implemented. Now, why was that the main thing that they spoke about? Firstly, the reports of the actual meeting spoke about certain developments to do with investments and projects that they have and financial projects. But really and truly, you've had a meeting here with officials from both countries to do with the foreign ministers and the intelligence ministers and some security officials too. These people don't usually just talk about or talk about even at all financial things. They will, of course, they might include these things, but usually they will speak about matters related to security and things that are related to their national security. And it was mentioned in the reports that they spoke about the situation in Gaza and how that it's outright refused. So they're trying to send a message here to the United States and Israel too, because there is no communication between the president of Egypt, by the way, and the Israeli prime minister, that this will also lead to a war. And by the way, if you think, and despite the fact that Egypt doesn't want a war, and the administration in Egypt clearly hasn't fulfilled all of its potential with what they can do and the leverage inside of the Gaza Strip, but if you think that the prospect of that happening is not very realistic, then you're not really getting the whole thing, because Benjamin Netanyahu is a psychopathic lunatic on a leash. Imagine you give a psychopathic individual weapons of mass destruction and tell him do as you wish. That is Benjamin Netanyahu. And Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's greed, because Netanyahu is the epitome of the Zionist idea. Forget about the fact that he is on the right and he has extremists with him. Forget about that. This is a full, blunt, naked representation of the Zionist idea in full force. That's Benjamin Netanyahu, and that's Smotrich, and that's Ben Gvir. Whilst the others like to sugarcoat it and whitewash it and play as if they care about equality or human rights and what have you, and like to speak nicely, whereas Benjamin Netanyahu and his clan are blunt and say it as it is, which gives us more clarity at the end of the day. So, danger, escalation with Iran, with Jordan yesterday, and now with Lebanon, with their own mediators who are aligned with them too. But something might be turning here in the favor of Hezbollah in Lebanon. And I'll tell you why. Look at this here. Tom Barak, the envoy to Lebanon and Syria, he went to Lebanon and he spoke with the Lebanese side and with the Israeli side. And the last time he was in Lebanon, he said, now we need to see a step coming from Israel towards Lebanon. Lebanon said they're going to disarm, and regardless of, the fact that Hezbollah will agree or will not agree, because they clearly said no, so long as there's Israeli occupation and there are no clear mechanisms, we're willing to have the weapons within the hands of the state, so long as there's a strategic understanding and with negotiations, not as something imposed coming from the United States or as a demand from the United States when we have a Zionist occupation here and the United States is undermining the sovereignty entirely of Lebanon and its people. He went back, he said, Israel, now you need to have a go and then give us something in return. Israel gave vague answers. We might reduce targeted assassinations and some of the attacks that are happening in South Lebanon, but we reject the arrangement with Lebanon. And guess what? We want an industrial zone to be established across the border. Look at the audacity. Look at the audacity of these people. What do they mean by an industrial zone established across the border? That means they want 1.2 million Lebanese, the natives of Lebanon and of South Lebanon who sacrificed to liberate Lebanon, the brave people of Lebanon, the purest even of Lebanon, to be expelled from their homes and for Lebanon to have an industrial zone instead. Misplace 1.2 million. And if some of you think that this idea is like ridiculous, no, they were already planning. And they already have plans to expel some of these populations to countries like Iraq and other countries too, like Iraq or Iran. Now, this is of course putting the American envoy Tom Barak in a very silly position. He looks silly now. Why? Because the people are exposing him anyway. People are saying that, look, these demands to disarm the Lebanese resistance are coming from Tom Barak. It reached a level where he started to have to deny, which is good, which means he's under pressure. Because the Lebanese government would look like puppets, right? Oh, we received an order from Mr. America, let's implement it here. So now, what is he going to tell the Lebanese people? He's going to tell them, I didn't manage to convince them. What are the Lebanese going to say? What is going to be the position of Hezbollah? This is where I wanted to get. The position of Hezbollah and the position of the Lebanese resistance will be stronger than ever. And if there is anything called strategic patience, this is where you'll see the fruits of this strategic patience. How? It will come by Hezbollah telling the people or telling the Lebanese side, okay, cool. Israel was attacking us. Israel was assassinating us. They had over 4,000 breaches of the ceasefire. We didn't even have one breach of the ceasefire. And despite all of that, you are unable to force them to withdraw from areas that they occupy. Not only that, Israel is demanding to expel people from their homes in Lebanon. I mean, how brazen these people are, how arrogant, how supremacist, how despicable. What is this entitlement? My gosh. Wow. Don't go back to your own lands and send the people to other countries and establish industrial zones inside of Lebanon, in the areas that are on the borders between Lebanon and Israel, because we want this to be a buffer zone. Can you get the picture You have an escalation with Iran, with Yemen, with Egypt, with Jordan, with Lebanon, with Syria, all of that. And despite the fact that some of these countries are talking and trying to de-escalate and trying to have deals and diplomacy, no diplomacy, Netanyahu is on a mission, on a messianic mission, something connected to his spiritual belief. He said that to have a greater Israel, religious war. We have a man conducting a religious war against the entire world based on fanatic, cultish, messianic, Zionist beliefs. And he is allowed to do that like a rabid dog, like a rabid psychopathic dog, butchering countries left, right, and center. And some of them are still saying, oh yeah, we might talk to them and let's try and understand and get some diplomacy. All of the signs show that things are going to get much worse. And what we have seen so far might be just the beginning of this whole campaign coming from Benjamin Netanyahu. And the days will show, because, you know, sometimes you have months can pass and weeks and half a year and this and that. All of a sudden, they'll do something and they're now closer than ever because Benjamin Netanyahu is in a situation that is the worst type of situation that he has been in for a very, very long time.